on this computer.
Recording in progress.
Hello, and welcome to the next session of our program. So far, we've covered trust, we've covered verify, we've covered the building of the temple, and now we'll cover the processes through which we'll do all of these things, right? So we've talked a little bit about building out the different levels of engagement, building out the different levels for each thing. And last night I was talking with Daniel in the night class, and he was saying that he feels like he's in the level 2 stage because he now knows that the magic and the energy is real, and he knows that the gate energy and stuff like that is a very specific frequency. And now he's going to undertake the rite of transformation. So he's going to become that level 2 initiate for the system, right?
Nice.
So he really is looking forward to it. And we were talking about astral projection, the astral temple. And the homework that I gave him last night was to do a flesh crafting symbol. So it was to take the sigil that he had prepared on the gate, you know, his version of it. He was going to go out for a walk and get some jasmine tea, I believe it was, or something that's associated with the moon. The goal was then to soak the talisman in said tea and then put it an ink transfer onto his skin. So that way he could evoke the symbol through his skin into that system. So when he conjured the gate, it would enter and fill his body up directly. So tonight, I'm looking forward to hearing about the results from that from him. So that's how his implementation of becoming attached to these energies before he's officially attached to these energies will occur. And so my question for you is, what kind of things can we help you do, like, for your people? Like what kind of thing do you want to do like that can like viscerally change their experience, so that way they have not only trust of the method, verification of the method, individual gnosis of the method, but an exploration of it, you know? It's like, what do you think that we could help your people do?
I don't know. I haven't got that far.
Okay.
I've had other things on my mind lately.
Yes, I understand. I understand that very much. That going well?
Yes. Might be a shot in the dark, but I think I got it.
Good. At least it starts the process, you know, and that's important. The questions that I've got as far as like implementation and stuff goes for you is like, what are the next things that you want to see in your own practice develop? You know, I know you have a lot on your plate with the situation at hand, with the state and all of that, but have you given any thought to those next things that you want to practice directly? Have you gone through the basic mechanics for summoning the spirits and things in your local region? I know you've talked about going out there, but have you planned out what the stages of your ritual are going to be?
No, not yet. I want to do some kind of summoning to get stuff to move, to, you know, to get that kind of evidence on camera. Things moving, you know, voices maybe, because I can get voices through the EVP recorder here.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So as I have the camera working, if I set the EVP recorder right next to said gate as I'm doing it, and an EMF detector.
So do you want to go through and set up an example of a summoning spell? Like full on, like we can go through that real quick, and that way we get a method that you can practice, or you can start examining, because you've got the spirit anchoring formulation that I use coming to you. So you can just mix it with some of the black paint to build the array itself out.
Or even black ink, right? Does it got to be black paint, or can it be black ink?
Black ink, that's fine. I was just saying, if you wanted to do a summoning array itself, and do it in a big grid on a piece of wood that you throw down.
Gotcha.
But like, if you go to like bellforestproducts.com, like, I don't have any association with them whatsoever, but they're an exotic lumber dealer. So if you get a piece of wood from,
I have hardware downstairs.
Oh shit, yeah. Get you a piece of exotic wood like Wenge, or fuck, what's a good one? Oak would be great if you did that, and then you could draw out your grid on that, right? And so when you're building your grid and you're making your conjuration, you want to figure out what are these things that are in relation to you, right? Like Saturn is the gate of death, the gate of transformation. So that would be the thing that I would recommend you open.
Saturn.
Yeah. So things with the gates of Saturn. And I've sent these pictures to you before, but I'm just going to load it up in the screen so we can go.
I've been seeing this planet a lot lately and everything.
Yeah. Let's see.
Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter's another prominent one I keep seeing.
Jupiter's a good one, man. Let's see here.
So I came out to take my kratom this morning, right?
Yeah.
And this card flies right out in front of me.
Which card? Ah, interesting. Okay.
I chalk it up as if it's stuck to the bottom of the scale, which is possible, but the fact that it laid right face up in front of me,
That's a little convenient.
a little interesting.
All right. So do you have a known spirit that you want to summon, or do you have something that you just want to do a general purpose for?
Just a general purpose.
Okay. General.
Once I get into it and get, more situated, have more things, then I'll start summoning, like, the leaders of the legions of hell and the big bosses.
That works. That works. Let's see here. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna take a picture of this. All right. This is a general purpose summoning spell. All right, so now modifications that I would suggest making to this, because this is mostly for my notes.
Right.
So the modifications on these files, basic. Huh. All right, so we're going to share a screen. Can you see this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
So it says open the gates between the worlds in each of the three sections, right? In the bottom left, you have the symbol of the gold, or sorry, silver. The bottom right is the symbol for gold, and in the top is the symbol for the Mercury.
Okay.
Then you have the symbol of Azoth, which is the unification of the Cadus down here at the bottom, the symbol of the sun, and the symbol of the moon. This represents the unification of both the divine and the physical components to create what in alchemical terms is the Philosopher's Stone, or the chemical stone. So replicating these ingredients, this particular bit is a very personal symbol for me because it was mixed with blood. So I can lay this out on anything. Like I can just open the page of the book and then bam, like this is again the Book of Power, right? It's an act.
So I can get a piece of cardboard and lay it out on that and draw it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome.
And so you use the spirit anchoring formula to that in your ink. You can use this is a dragon's blood ink base. You don't have to use dragon's blood. In fact, if you're going to just summon the random wandering spirits, I would recommend you use a black ink for that. So like a standard black India ink would be fine.
Okay.
Then you prep the space. So do you have any friends that are farmers?
Yeah.
I mean, like of chickens and stuff?
Yeah.
If you can get shells from chickens that have hatched.
Okay.
Those are the shells of power. Those because they've known life, not from shells from the grocery store.
Shells from chickens that hatch.
Yeah. So ask him to save some of the shells from the little chicklets that hatch, because I know that it's
the little eggs, like, yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So like fertilized eggs that aren't going to be brought to term are great for holding spirits and such, because they know life inside.
Right.
But like the ones from the grocery store don't do shit. Like
Gotcha.
you can't use that for that kind of spell. And so when you're summoning the spirits, you're pulling them into these kinds of things and into these intermediaries. And if you grind that down and you create a circle for it, right? That can be your boundary spell for creating the place. Well, this is where life came through. This is where through these shells, life has come and into. If you were to grind it down into a powder and compress it, you could actually use something like it's called cascaria. You use it in a lot of Santeria things to draw the crosses on the graveyards or on the door frame and things like that to create a sacred area. And so you're using stuff that's known life, right? And so with the spirit anchoring blend and the shells that have known life, you've got a place where that energy can gather. And so it'll radiate out into the environment. You can use things like a combination of barberry, moonwort, gravel root, and what's another good boundary herb? But you create the boundary, like you can mix the plant material into the shells, and then you can create a boundary rope. A Solomon seal, that's the one, because you're creating a seal within the shells, so that way nothing leaves outside the boundary that you create.
Right.
And so one of the spells that I've got in a jar over there, I could get it and show you, but it was those eggshells boiled with the herbs, right? So that the virtues of the herbs transferred onto the eggshells, and then the eggshells were put in a circle on straight pieces of cloth that were then rolled and tied together using sinew. So it actually creates a barrier rope. So it's the magic circle. It is a literal circle of stuff that you put on the ground, and it becomes the boundary.
Okay.
So if you've got the time and the resources to make that, if you just straight pieces of cloth that you lay out in a circle, and you put your eggshells, you put your herbs on there, you roll it up, and you can sew it closed.
Okay.
And that way it keeps it, and then you can reuse this thing. Like make sure that your eggshells are all dried out and they're not going to be rotting, things like that. But it becomes an actual boundary rope for the magic circle.
Okay.
And so when you sit inside that space, or when you summon things into that space, they stay put.
Awesome.
So that could be your fixed location in your space. So giving these the application, giving these the intent to manifest, giving these the location by which you can do that. And then at each of the points of the triangle, because again, we're using Saturn, so it's a 3-based system, right? It's for the number 3, so that's why the triangle. Candles in each of the points, right? You could use red, black, and white.
Each point.
Yeah, one
black, yellow, and
black, red, and white.
Black, red, and white.
Yeah. White for the purity of the spirit, black to draw the spirit forward, and red to represent the blood of the thing as it was in its living state, or in this case, the non-living state. Something that you would put in the very center on top of this symbol of Saturn would be one of those ingredients, or a scrying mirror, or the incense of summoning, or things like that you want to be bringing it into and giving it the body. So the array is set, the candles are set around it. Inside, on top of the array in the center, is the medium through which that spirit gets conjured.
Okay.
So it would be the eggshell rope boundary. It would be the grid, the incense, the candles. You line it up to the east or to the west, depending on what it is you summon. If it's something that you're bringing into this world from a celestial capacity, you face east. If it's something that you're bringing it from the dead, you face west. The apex should point west, because it's from that point into the world. It's like opening the doors into this world to your left
Just like
and
the
right.
sun rises from the east.
Exactly. Yeah. And the gates of Duat, or the Egyptian otherworld, open at the west. And so we enter the other world by facing west, by the sunset of the sun on the Nile, right?
Right.
So it's one of those things where you want to make sure that you're aligned correct. You could do it on any day. You could do it at any point of any hour of the day that you want. Saturn, of course, is going to be your strongest ingredients. The elemental associations. So let's reference that image again real quick. So share screen. We're going to do back to this, and we're going to do share. So
Saturn's Earth, ain't it?
Yes,
No.
but
It's cold.
Saturn also has every arrangement for each of the elements. So there is the earth of Saturn, there's the air of Saturn, there's the water of Saturn, there's the fire of Saturn.
Right.
Those ingredients are very specific. Let's find it for you so that way we can just go through it. Mars, the sun, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. Okay, cool. So the center of it, its color would be blue violet for the color. The ingredients of the center for Saturn would be myrrh, and you could use ground spiders for the animal component. The earth of Saturn would be indigo in color. So if you go on Amazon, you get the colorful sand. It's really cool to use this stuff too. So you get the colorful sand, you can mix it with patchouli and you can mix it with myrrh. Also, if you've got snake bones and spiders, because spider is the animal of the animal of Saturn, right? And so if you mix it with the snake, it's the earth aspect of it. So you're mixing the snake and the spider together to bond with the myrrh and the patchouli. The air of Saturn, it's blue and black.
Okay.
Its ingredients are lavender and myrrh. And if you can swing it, human bones and spiders. Mix those together. Fire.
Spider.
Is black and blue. So instead of like the blue with the black, this is more blue with a little bit of black. Hibiscus and myrrh would be the two ingredients for that, for the fire element. And if you can figure out how to get it, like I was lucky to get a couple of them from one of the root working shops here is from Osteological Supplies, or the boneroom.com is lion bones. So that would be the ingredient for fire for these. And then the water of Saturn, it would be black in color.
Right, that makes sense.
The ingredient would be blue lotus, and you can get that from I Am Shaman or some of the more interesting. Some smoke shops have it, some ethnobotanical shops have it, but I know I Am Shaman carries it. That's where I get mine from. And myrrh mixes with that also. And so if you've got those around the base of see where it's got the four spaces here in the diamond shape.
Yeah,
it's got these four little spaces. You put that in each of the four corners.
Okay.
To do for the elements.
Right, and then your medium will be in the middle on the Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
That way it's supported from the gates of the elements. Those energies can come forth up from the earth and into the medium. And by using the animal component, you get the behavior of the spirit. But
I start doing this in the cemetery at 2:00 in the morning, and I'm definitely going to have the whole town out wondering what I'm doing.
I mean, the thing is though, here's the thing, Mike. If you take cemetery dirt home with you, You can make you can draw the cemetery dirt in the pattern of the seal of Saturn or the planetary thing, and then put the incense on top of that.
Okay.
You don't have to be in the cemetery for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, like
Well,
you can do this in a controlled environment. Like you don't like
I might do it a couple times before I get to the cemetery, but I'm definitely doing it at the cemetery. I'm gonna bring the whole town out. Come on, guys, we're gonna learn some witchcraft. Let's raise the dead.
Right? Oh my God. So the story about how this spell came about is when I was doing I was basically trying out for the job of working for the paranormal investigation company. And this is the glyph that I drew on a grave. I drew the pentagram, I drew the circle, and I drew the seal of Saturn inside of it. So it was a little less intense than this, but this is the refined version. Anyway, I called the spirit up out of its grave. So the important key triggers for this one are the circle, the triangle, the seal of Saturn in the center.
Right.
And then I had the skeptic put 1 foot on top of it. So that way, from that energy up through their body, they would set the current. 1 foot was off on the regular earth that wasn't on the grave.
So it was grounded.
Exactly. So it created the circuit. And in his hands, I had the dowsing rods.
Nice.
So whenever we questioned the spirit, the dowsing rods would move.
Right. Right. You would know they're
It freaked him the fuck out. It was fantastic. It's like, all right, skeptic.
That's awesome.
Hold my beer. So I know this works as a physical conduit as well as a image conduit.
Okay.
So what I gave you in the full formal version that you can do at your house, and then there's the quick and down and dirty, you're in the field. You can take a ritual blade and you can cut it into the dirt and then put a person's foot on top of it, or you can use a piece of chalk, right?
Right.
Using the shells as cascaria is what you could use as the chalk to draw the circle and the thing and the symbol of Saturn, right? Gotcha. And then the spell that you say is open the gates between the worlds, right? Open the way between the worlds, or open the path between the worlds. This particular one says open the gates. And that's not written in runic for anybody else but me. Like that could be in English and that'd be fine. It would do the same thing. That's just an example of, in Egyptian magic, when they would do the images within a circle, it represents the path of the other world. So if it was just the square and the diamond shape, that would represent this world. If it was that square in a circle, it represents the other world, the earth of the other world. All right?
And what's that saying?
It says open the gates between the worlds. And then if you're doing it by the graveside, you say, come forth, name the spirit of the grave that you're working on, and give the birth date and time. You who were born on, you who died on, I call forth your spirit from the other side. And that draws it up through the corpse, through the grave dirt, through the symbols that you use, into the intermediaries, and freaks out your skeptics.
Awesome.
Incense can be something simple like lavender. It can be parsley. Parsley can summon or banish spirits. Lavender can summon good spirits. Vervain can summon the good fae spirits. You don't have to use heavy toxic ingredients like the mandrake root. You don't have to. You don't have to burn yew needles to do any of that. Yarrow increases your psychic sight, so you don't have to add that, but you could if you wanted to have something that's more vision inducing. But just a good blend of lavender and tobacco is a really good, like, there's offering in it, there's a summoning to it. It's like, let's come to the party, you know. That's a good, simple, inexpensive herbal blend that can really move that needle forward for when it comes to summoning up something in the graveyard or through the graveyard material. Right. And then the ritual gestures that you could do You could do a knocking on the grave. So if you've got a bone wand, you can tap a couple times in the center of it and say, I call you forth, spirit, rise forth to me. You don't have to. You could do it with regular wand. You could do it with a staff. You could thump on the ground and be like, come forth. Careful, depending on the radius of that might like the region. And then, it's like, I hope you mix moonwort and a bunch of other shit into that barrier circle.
I got my trusty little one I gotta work on.
Good. But yeah, it's stuff like that, and these are physical things like the ritual space in the circle. You actually make it out of eggshells and herbs and stitch it in a fabric, and if you get a chance to do so, you can actually bury it in the graveyard for a while and let the spirits and stuff attune to that thing. So that way, when you place it down, when you're about to work, you can place that, and that'll actually be a boundary between the world of the dead and the living. So you're actually physically constructing these wherein as possible, right? So then you put your triangle, then you put your components, then you can put your crystals and your incense and things like that that'll help facilitate that. And so over like the incense, right? You can put a scrying stone or a crystal.
Okay.
And so like in the three-legged cauldron that I use, I could put a crystal over the top of this thing with the incense still burning in the center of it without catching anything on fire. Okay. So a setup like that, while great, might not, I don't know about I don't know about the situation that you've got. Can you keep a heat source so that the smoke can form? And
I have a little cauldron, yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got a scrying medium, like a bowl of water you could use so that the smoke can infuse the water and that sort of thing, is you want to create a conduit where the spirits are going to come from, where they're going to enter from, where they're going to go to once they're there. And that way, the more you can condition it to the spirit environment, the safer it's going to be for interactions, because the less chance of corruption that there'll be, right?
Gotcha.
So the deeper that you can get into the summoning of individual forces, you can do these kinds of things.
Right.
Did you get a chance to see the summoning, the Speaking with the Dead challenge, which I went through the tips of practical necromancy over about 5 lessons? Did you ever watch that?
I think I did, yeah, when I first got into watching you on the Brotherhood.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
yes, I did.
Yeah, it's the same method I talked about in that here. So
I'll have to go back and watch them, but yeah, I remember it. Okay. I remember watching them.
Yeah, like that, like practical necromancy. It's all about the relationship, and then using the square of Saturn. So those 3x3 grids. If you know the name of the spirit, you use the Pythagorean numerology, and you break it down, right? You use their sigil on the date of their birth and the date of their death, and you can in the places around that symbol in their grave dirt, if you're not doing it at the graveside, you can take the grave dirt and you can make the sigils out of the graveyard dirt.
Gotcha.
So you've got the symbol of Saturn and you've got the symbol of the individual that you're summoning through that. You can replace the seal of Saturn. So if you're looking to do a specific summoning, instead of using the generic alchemical symbol of Saturn, you can actually make their name sigil with their graveyard dirt.
Okay.
So you can get really, really specific. Yeah, and just make sure that you take water to the grave. You've got in your ritual space where you're summoning, because you're using the black, the white, and the red candle as the anchoring for the spell itself. That's not an offering candle. You're not giving light. So on a separate area next to or within the space, depending on how big you make that ritual boundary, you've got a glass of water, a glass of beer, and a cigarette, and a candle. That's just specifically for them to come in for offering. Gotcha. That's it. That's what all that's for. You just have an offering space within that they can come and enjoy. They can smoke their cigarette. They can, I would really recommend getting actual cigarettes for that. And not just offertory incense, because it's more of a human flavor, right?
Right. I got you. Yep.
You can use coffee for those that are underage instead, and you're trying necromancy for the first time, kids. Be careful. Don't do anything illegal and stupid, but you can use coffee instead of alcohol. So if you've got problems with substances and things like that, black coffee works just as well. Unless you get the divination to understand that, yes, you can use coffee with a little sugar, or you can make it an Americano. Don't go to Starbucks, brew the shit yourself.
I have tequila I keep on hand.
Perfect. That works. Some spirits don't like tequila though.
No?
No. They really don't. Things like rum is a really good one because of the blood that was in the land with the cane plants when people were being murdered and such like that in the cane fields. You're calling on the ancestors of the people that also died, and it's their spirit that you're incorporating into and giving back to spirit so that they can.
Hey, I like rum.
Good. Yeah, but this remember, this is for spirits, not for you. This is for them, not for you.
I can drink with them, right?
In certain situations, no. No. So offering alcohol, like specific ones, you mix it with herbs, or it's made in such a way where it's specifically not for human consumption. Like it becomes toxic. Like you would add in for certain types of working, you can add into beer, for example, mandrake root. You can add in tobacco. You could mix in black nightshade or woody nightshade, and it becomes poisonous.
Gotcha.
So when you pour it on the earth, you're using it to draw the spirits. It's the nightshade plants. It's for them specifically. That is not for consumption, people. Not for consumption.
Well, that's why you have your own bottle.
Right. You have you can drink with them afterwards. Absolutely. But when you're in the ritual process, you want to make sure you've got a clear head, because you don't want anything to lead you astray, as it were. Because if you do that, then it becomes dangerous to you and others, because you don't know where your consciousness begins and theirs begins, right? Yours.
Rule number 2, party after practice.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, it's simple stuff like that, you know. The invocations that you're using to call down power are different from the evocations that you use to summon the spirit. So we've talked about invocations a little bit last night with Daniel, where as the individual priest, you call on the name of God, right? It's the ancient method of doing it. It's like, I am Marduk, master of magicians, or I am Enki, etc. You bring in that intelligence to your body, right? And in pastoral ritual, you assume the role of God. You assume the role of that particular entity, or that energy that you're bringing in and invoking as the power to which you can command and compel these energies forth from their rest and from their places. And if you don't have the authority vested through initiation rites to meet the gods, to know that sort of thing, those invocations don't work. So this is where you would have to rely on the pastoral lineage that you have to call forth by the names of God. That's where you would call upon the rabbinical scriptures, because you carry the rights to do that. You became the priest, right? So you understand that you can do that sort of thing, but for the lay people that are trying to do this, that don't carry pastoral lineage in any capacity, they don't have the right to do that. They don't have the authority to call on the gods in that capacity. It doesn't matter how many times you say the words, it's empty words. You have to know and live as an extension of that energy. This is why there's a period of purification, usually between 30 to 45 days, in order to clear your body of the toxins, in order to purify yourself, do the devotional prayers and the hours of Saturn to align yourself to these energies. So specifically in ancient ritual magic texts, that it gives you that focus. But at the same time, you want to make sure that what you're doing is practical for you and your purposes, right? But you don't want to incorporate anything that would be dangerous. So the people that aren't that entity or aren't associated with those energies, they don't have that danger to them, right? So if you're going to have anybody who's an assistant with you and they're not privy to the power that you possess, they can't speak the invocations you can. In fact, it becomes dangerous for them to do so, because that entity will look at you, will look at them with whatever you perceive as eyes and a mind, and it will just be like, who are you? I don't know you. I don't have to listen to you. I can.
Oof, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's not the relationship you want. You want to have like, okay, well, I recognize your authority because I recognize the authority of that thing that you are associated with. So therefore, I'll sit and listen for a little while, depending on how good you make this, right? And that's part of summoning and evocation that, again, gets glossed over by a lot of modern magicians, is they don't take the time to realize that holy orders are literal.
Oh, yeah. Egyptians were big on that.
Yeah. And that's where I learned it from, was going through a very literal rite to meet the Netcher, to get the name of God, to get the name of that infused within my being. A God, one of them anyway. So what I can say and do in ritual magic, you can't say and do in ritual magic, but at the same time, you have to figure out a way to get your own. So that's why some of the spells that I teach you about, it's like, yes, I can do these things. I have done these things. I can do them quite prolifically. You have to figure out a way to make it translate into what you are capable of doing.
Right.
And this is where the deviation in practice occurs between what I can teach to a certain point. You have to pick up and carry over. You have to finish that through line for what is your practice. And this is why teaching it, like in this forum to you, it's going to give you that working knowledge to be able to, okay, well, this is the stuff that I got to work and translate for me, right? So you got to figure out how to open the gates of Saturn. You got to figure out how to summon the spirits using the higher principles that will dislodge them from their bones, right? So in this case, working with the gods of death, working with the gods of spirit, working with the things that will free them from their bonds or their bones, it becomes a requirement, because you have to basically override the funerary rites that keep their spirit bound to their bones until the resurrection.
Right.
So that alone, depending on if they were Catholic, I mean, and you can tell if it's a Catholic cemetery, they're generally buried under Catholic ritual. If it's a community cemetery, it's probably a Christian ritual, not Catholic. It could be Protestant, etc. But generally, very rarely are you ever going to have a pagan burial, because that's
an English town, so it's probably Christian.
Right. And so if you know, or it could be Amish, like, right?
Could be Amish, yeah, you're right.
So again, you got to just look up and study the wording of their funerary rites. You know, it's like, what is their meaning of the passages that they speak, and are you going to be able to deliver said spirit? And this is why I really
Amish is the same as Christian.
No.
Yeah, almost to the T. They just live it out more than regular Christians.
Right.
They go with no electricity. They do their own meat. Like they are in it. Like they're worse than Seventh-day Adventists, man.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I absolutely love about that culture, is like they are that culture. Like that is fantastic. They don't fuck up the earth in the same way. They don't. Yeah, it's a lot of extra work to do that, but I respect the shit out of the folks that, you know, they don't pollute the earth like the way that, you know, the rest of the world is. They don't corrupt the land the same way. You know, they use the land, they use the animals.
They understand Mother Nature.
Exactly. So they're as close to the fucking druids as you're going to get, you know, in the Christian church, just because they're interwoven inexorably. Yeah, they follow the vampire zombie god, but whatever.
I haven't proven it yet, but I think they're from along the lines of the gypsies. I just haven't proven it yet.
They're not. They're Pennsylvania Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
German.
And I'm pretty sure Pennsylvania Dutch German goes back to the gypsies, but
no, they don't.
I haven't proven it yet.
Can't prove it.
I haven't proven it yet, but I will.
That's a separate culture.
It may be, but they act a lot like them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a tribal society. So anybody who's not part of the tribal society doesn't get to know the secrets. It's like when I was talking with Edith about how when she was living with gypsy people or Romany people, they were very strict. It's a very closed society. It's because they have to be, right? Some of their rituals of summoning, their rituals of magic, their rituals of divination and things like that. It's all very closed to outsiders, and it functions very closely like a mafia. It's like they look out for their own and fuck everybody else, you know? And
I'm related to the Mushkis. What are they called? Mennonites?
okay. So, you know, and it's one of those things where you've got to balance those traditions. You've got to balance the action. And so, you know, if you're going to call on the names of God or your priesthood with God to do that, then, you know, got to go purify at a church. You got to go do mass on a Sunday. You've got to go shed yourself of the not divine aspects of yourself. And so to do that, you have to enter a period of purification. And so that's one of those big things where it's like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to us because this is what we do all day, right? But for those that are looking to get into evocation and they're looking to do that kind of thing when it comes from a place of power, like we're going to channel this deity, we're going to channel these energies, we have to do it the right way. Because to not do it the right way, there is no protection by the thing that we're summoning. There is no authority by the thing that we're trying to use as the battery or the go juice or the thing that opens the gates, right? If you don't have that authority, if you don't have that connection, if you don't have that purification going, if you don't have that relationship with those forces going, you got bupkis for your manifestation.
Right.
And it becomes dangerous to implement. So it's a very specific type of path to do evocations like that. Now, can any of the magicians or any of the wizards or witches or whoever watches this video use the methodology in order to summon up the spirit of the dead? Absolutely, they can. But they have to write their own opening spell. They have to write their own evocation. They have to create within themselves the power flow as necessary, right? So once you do the rite of transformation, it becomes, I open the gates, and it's you are the pathway through which that energy flows, because you open the gates inside yourself. You know how that flows. You're just triggering it down your body energy and into the space before you. If you don't have that flow and you have to call on a god in order to establish that flow, if you have to call on an outside spirit in order to establish that flow, if you have to call on the elemental forces in order to establish that flow, you best damn well know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, you're in danger, and you're in danger.
That's where hermeticism comes in, guys.
Yeah.
Hermeticism and astrology. That's where that comes in at, guys.
No, everything has a place, everything has a higher and a lower aspect, and it gets really, really fucking myopic.
Yes, it does.
This is why, you know, the summoning magic of the grimoires and the evocations of the spirits and such, it's not for everybody to do. It really isn't. And it was never meant for everybody to do. It was meant for those extremely weird priests that were trying to summon up devils and demons and angels and spirits so that they could get to know them one-to-one, and they could see how evil or how benevolent they really are, right? Or how to use the demons for benevolent purposes. Because at the end of the day, Lucifer still serves God, even if he does so in a way that he doesn't realize, right? He's still an emissary of the divine. Every demon, every angel still serves to divine purpose, even if they do so in a really fucked up kind of way, right? But those are all provisions made by heaven.
I think the All Fathers use reverse psychology on him, like, you think you're rebelling, but you're actually doing what I want.
Right? You're giving people two options. Either they can do it themselves with you, or they can do it with me and Jesus. Like, they're two sides of the same fucking coin. They all come from the divinity.
Yeah.
Right.
I like your red and blue. Same side of the coin, guys.
Right. And that brings me to my other point. There's that dangerous person in Tennessee right now who is talking about literally killing people that are.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a response video to that. Just haven't done it yet, but yeah, I'm upset about that video.
A lot of people are upset about that video, and
I mean, I'm majorly upset about that video. Like, you just don't come out and like start condemning witches after 1600 years of not. This is America, man. Like, who does that shit? No.
Him and the Nazis do that shit.
Well, we have a Freedom of Reformation Act, and don't. I mean, look, yeah. I've been studying law for the last week. Like, don't make me bring out my shit now. Like,
Oh, no. But see, and this is the point that I'm making is the thing that we just finished discussing, right? This is magic I learned from studying Christian texts.
yeah,
This is the stuff that I learned from studying the Encyclical of Pope Leo. This is the stuff that I learned from the Black Pullet. This is the stuff that's holy magic. This is for priests only.
people don't realize their psalms that they're singing and praising. They're actual spells, guys. Like, okay, yeah, there might be some things added to it, but when you break it down, the majority of it, the main base of the text, it's a spell.
It is, and there's a really great book. It's called the Book of Gold.
Yeah.
It's 17th century magic of the Psalms, the symbols and which psalm you say for which spell. It's a beautiful book.
You know how I figured out Psalms and a couple of other books were actually spells? It wasn't until I got into a deep microcosm, macrocosm of the Jewish Kabbalah and the incantations that they use with that. A lot of it's Psalms.
Yeah.
I was like, the blessing of pendulums and stuff, a lot of it is Psalms that Rabbi Kaduri did. A lot of it came from Psalms, a couple from, maybe like Nehemiah or Jeremiah, but a lot of it was Psalms.
Have you ever read the Book of Common Prayer?
No.
Holy shit, dude. That is a book you should find.
What is it?
It's the Book of Common Prayer. I'm going to go grab a copy and go through the index with you because this shit is nuts. So it's a little red book and it's got a gold cross.
You're still sharing, so I can't really, the picture.
I'm
like
still sharing? Sorry about that.
It's good. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay.
This, like, I picked this up at the it's the administration of the sacraments and other rites and ceremonies of the church, together with the Psalter or Psalms of David. The Episcopal Church is who puts this out. This one is from September 1979, but it's got the daily morning prayer, the daily evening prayer, the second morning prayer, the noonday prayer, the order of worship for the evening, the daily evening prayer rite 2, daily devotions for individuals. It's got all the prayers for the different. It's got the confirmation. It's got the blessing of a civil marriage. It's got the administration at the time of death. It's also got the orders of burial in here. So the prayers of burial.
Okay.
It's got these ordination of a bishop, the ordination of a priest, the ordination of a deacon, and the litany for ordinations, the celebration of a new ministry, and the consecration of a church or chapel.
Okay.
So you want to make a holy space. This is a book that has all those conjurations in it. Straight up. It's got the Psalms of David, the prayers of thanksgiving. It's got the catechism in there for the outline of faith. It's got the daily prayers that you can go through. The ratification of the Book of Common Prayer from 1789 by the bishops, the clergy, and the laity of the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America in the convention the 16th day of October in the year of our Lord 1789. The convention having in their present session set forth a Book of Common Prayer and administration of the sacraments and other rites and ceremonies of the church, do hereby establish the said book, and they declare it to be the liturgy of this church, and require that it be received as such by all members of the same. And this book shall be in use from and after the first day of October in the year of our Lord 1789.
Wow.
890, sorry. So yeah, so this is an official, like, you want to get into the holy orders and stuff. This,
Okay.
straight up. One bishop has to make another, though. You have to have a bishop to do the orders for you, right? So otherwise the prayers don't necessarily work. But in here, like, it's got the Eucharist, it's got exorcisms, but it has all of the Psalms in English, but it has the Latin name at the top of it.
Right.
And so you can go through things like the leaves of gold, or the Book of Gold, which is and it talks about which psalm you use, right? But that's a book of the full psalms without any of the other corruptions.
Gotcha.
And it's because it's the holy doctrine of the Episcopal Church, like that's you know,
Episcopalian.
that's one aspect to it, you know. And if you're going to get into the Catholic rites, if you're going to get into the Catholicism behind it, but you can use that to function as a base for your ministry, for your practice. You know, it's not separate, because if you're going to be calling on God, you need to be able to think and pray and do and channel that energy through you. If you're going to be using that as the go juice behind summoning up Lucifer or summoning up the kings of hell or summoning up the archdemons and those things into a specific place, right?
Right.
But if you're calling on those things and you're not doing it appropriately, you're not setting the space, you don't have the bones, you don't have the ingredients, you don't have the graveyard dirt, etc. Right?
It would probably be more Jewish than Christian, because I'm more familiar with the Jewish than I am. Like, don't get me wrong, I was raised in Christian and I know the whole hoopla, but when it comes to magic, again, I got to revert back to Solomon. It's got to be Jewish, like, you know, it's
Right.
got to be Hebrew. So.
And
I'm well versed in Hebrew, so I can,
well, that's
I can
good.
do all my spells, letters, you know, through the Aleph Taub, and you know, I know the intimate name of God. So
That's good. Yeah, the 6th and 7th books of Moses then, or would be what I would say would be your best book of conjuration. There's also a really great one. It's called the Book of Oberon. And
I think I have that one.
that's a really good one.
I think I got that when I got the Oberon something School of Wizardry book.
No, this is separate.
Oh, okay.
This is a ritual grimoire of summoning up spirits.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, I'll go. There's another one too that I would recommend. So there's the Book of Saint Cyprian,
Right.
who is the Bishop of Antioch, and it's really fun because they have an apostolic order that is operational in the United States. Like, they are the apostolic transmission for these holy orders. But Stephen Skinner and David Rankine did the Clavis Solomoni, the Clavis Inferni, the Book of Saint Cyprian. Broke the camera. Always breaking the camera. I really need to get better at doing this. Alrighty, folks. This thing.
Clavis Inferni.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the key of the infernal. And it goes through and it gives the alchemical letter and the elements.
Awesome.
It gives the directions. It gives the, like, who's got what in what book for saying. Like, Agrippa's occult philosophy from 1531. East is Orion, south is Ammon, west is Payman, and north is Egan. Where in the Key of Solomon from the mid to late 16th century, it's Igie is east, Ammam is south, Payman is west, and Egan is north. So instead of Orions, it's Igie.
Okay.
In the Pseudomonarchia Daemonium, Ammon is east, Ziminar is south, Corson is west, and Goap is north.
Gotcha.
And that was from 1563. So 30 years after the Agrippa's occult philosophy book, the names changed. Reginald Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft from 1583, which is the refutation of, it's basically what kept witches alive. It's or rather jugglers and stage magicians, and discriminated between witchcraft, clerical magic, and stage magic. And it was written to preserve as much life as possible. But Ammon is the east, Ziminar is the south, Corson is the west, and Goap is the north. So that was 20 years after the Pseudomonarchia Daemonium, but still included. And in the Abermelin, it goes back to Orions, Aeon, Paimon, and Eraton, right? So it changes again in 1610. 1641, it goes back to the order of the Pseudomonarchia Daemonium. In 1670, It's Maamon, Amaon, Paimon, and Egan. So again, these names, they changed throughout the history over a
Right.
period of 200 years. They can't agree on what is the name of the directions. So you have to be careful. But the demon kings and the archangels that they're paired with is like Mammon is Gabriel, Egan is Uriel, Urius is Michael, and Paimon is Raphael. Right. And so it also includes the Hebrew names.
Okay.
So this goes into detail on these things functional. So that way, if you're going to actually be using it, you know, it's like they also include the pictures of what they're supposed to look like. So like here's Mephistopheles is a giant dog beast bear thing. Like these are some crazy shit. The Cyprianic characters for the different letters so that you can put these around the magic circle and stuff. Those are in here. So it's your infernal alphabet, as it were.
Awesome.
Different pictures, different settings. The conjurations in Latin are in here.
Oh wow.
It broke the camera.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
you know, and it goes into where a lot of books will do like a ... This is one of those that goes into detail on the actual, like every name listed.
Okay.
So and again, like that's by Stephen Skinner and David Rankine. So if you're going to go into that, that's a source material.
Awesome.
Then there is the Clavis, or the Key to Magic of Solomon, by Sibley, Hockley, and Peterson. So
Okay.
red book,
Red
hexagram
books
on
are
it.
always good.
Yeah, this one's by Dr. Ebenezer Sibley from the 1800s.
Okay.
This is the first edition reprint from 2012. The first edition was 2009. This one, the history of this one, it says the Clavis, or the Key of Magic of Solomon, is one of several notebooks from the estate of Ebenezer Sibley, transcribed under the direction of Frederick Hockley from 1808 to 1885. Sibley was a prominent physician and influential author who complemented his scientific studies with writings on the deeper truths, including magic, astrology, alchemy, and mesmerism. Most of the text of this collection were probably attained in 1799 by antiquarian bookseller John Denley, who died in 1842, along with other items from Sibley's estate. Sibley had hoped that this collection would help preserve as a working after his death, but it quickly sold off. Fortunately, Hockley, working for Denley in the early century, made manuscript copies of these other texts for resale.
Okay.
So this collection includes 8 independent texts. They generally reflect Sibley's teachings on the practical use of celestial influences and harmonies, although his undisputed writings denounce the commerce with spirits so prevalent here. The Clavis contains clear and systematic instructions for the constructing of magical tools and pentacles for many purposes. The mysterious ring, the experiments of the spirits of Berto, Visago, Agares, and Belleferos show how to call on angels, spirits, and crystal scrying. And the Wheel of Wisdom, which is contained within, is a full-on, like, perfect correspondence chart for each of these things. So when I say each within each, like, this book has like fucking everything. It's great.
Awesome.
And full color plates. Like the benedictions and everything are in full color. It's absolutely astounding. So I know things are tight on your end, but this is one of those things where if you're going to be setting this shit up, man, like,
Oh, eventually I'll have me a nice little book collection.
right? So I'm going to send over to you the wheel of everything that they have, so that way you've got a copy of it. So while this is the full circle of correspondences. Oop, that came out really heavy.
You know, you little girl. You know what?
Damn. Turn off the flash. Crop this so it can be seen. So we can do this, so we can do this. All right, sending that over now.
Awesome.
So this is the association of who rules what and what are their ingredients.
Okay.
So this is where I get those tables from.
I've seen one similar like this. Well, where did I see it? Wasn't like this, but it was similar. Was it maybe Sumerian?
Might be, but yeah, they Sibley calls this the key, the wheel of wisdom is the section in this book.
It was either Viking or Sumerian that I've seen this on.
Distinctly possible. And then you've got the, let's see here, see if I can get out of this application and send this one over to you. But this way you've got all the ingredients necessary to make those incense blends and such like that. Here's an example of what those talismans look like. And it tells you what perfume you need. So like for the perfume of the sun, you need saffron, aloes, balsam of myrrh, or part of an ounce added to a grain of musk and ambergris, pulverized and mixed together into the size of small peas. The perfume of the talisman of the moon with Gabriel, it's the head of a frog, the eyes of a bull, a grain of white pepper, storax, lodestone camphor, pulverized with the paste of young barley.
Okay.
And those are not, as far as I've been able to determine, not plants. So like cow's eyes, like you could try to find their association in the herbal registries to see if they are associated with plants. But as far as I've been able to determine, yeah, you got to make some gross shit. But it goes into detail. So it includes the Latin conjurations.
Gotcha.
This is the book where it goes into all of the different names and it doesn't do the ... thing.
Right.
So these are source material books, and it tells you which to make on Monday, which to make on Tuesday, what are your
like King Solomon.
Yeah, that's what it's based on, is the Magic of Solomon.
Okay.
The book is called the Clavis, or the Key to the Magic of Solomon.
Yeah.
Like
Clavis.
That's so the Keys of the Infernal, the Clavis of Solomon, and then there's the Book of Oberon. This is Elizabethan magic, translated and annotated from the 16th century manuscript. So this is 16th century Elizabethan spirit magic.
Okay. Cool.
It's by Daniel Harms, James R. Clark, and Joseph Peterson. This particular copy was produced by Llewellyn Publications
1680.
in 2015.
Oh, okay.
But it talks about the first day of the first month is the good to the beginning of manner of all things. The second day, the second month is for hate and enchantment against enemies. The third day of the third month is the right to nothing. The fourth day of the fourth month is to enchant and conjure wicked spirits. The fifth day, and so on and so on. So they go through what day of the week is to do what spell.
Gotcha.
But it also gives you in English and in Latin the holy names. So if you can read that, if I can get that right.
Yeah, I can blow it up and read it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but this is one of those things where it gives you both the English and everything. But what's really nice about this copy is that they took the time to go through, and all of the holy names are in red.
I've seen that.
All of the other ones are in, like the rest of the conjuration is in black. Like it's really cool. But again, it's making this stuff functional so that way when you're using these things, you try to get it as close to memorization or as close to eloquence as possible
Right.
when you're dealing with these different aspects of the sigils, the different summoning spells also. There's a ton of talismans and such listed in here so that you can empower these by the different virtues of the spirits and such as you're working on.
Oh yeah. That's what, like I said, Rabbi Kaduri was doing.
Yeah. And so like this, seal of the earth. So like the sigil of the earth is in. It's really cool because a lot of these things run really parallel to the work that I wound up doing, and I didn't find this book until much later. And then one of the talismans that I've actually purchased over the years from Ka Jewelry is this. Come on. And this is made with the 7 metals.
Oh, I like that.
So for those of you that we're sharing screen, we're doing this.
Right away, I see Lilith.
Yeah.
Or Saturn.
The 7-point star for each of the planets.
Gotcha.
So there's, and then there's the different talismans. The idea that it was based on is the seal of the 7 planets.
Okay.
It's just this one was made in a very specific alignment on a very specific date.
Right.
And then there's, for the people that are watching the video, you get a chance to see the different colors of the text. If you need to pause, these are those talismans for the moon and the sun. And this is the wheel of
Yeah.
fate.
I've seen that before. I think it was Sumerian writings. I've seen that. Pretty sure it was Sumerian.
I mean, you get a lot of this stuff too in alchemy and shit like that. So as you're going through and you're building out your different associations for summoning and creating the different summoning spells that you make, it's delicate work because you want to make sure that what you're doing, it's not just the conjurations match the divine principles that you're channeling through you with the evocation and the invocation, right? Like the evocation is like by the gates and by the gods, etc. Like once you've invoked the power, then you evoke the spirit, and then you tell the spirit what you want it to do. And then in that state of telling the spirit what you want it to do, you have to give it the time to go and do it, or to go manifest it. Like if you're going to be summoning up something to do something for you, then you have to give it the time. Then you have to do a dismissing, right?
Right.
And then after that period of dismissal, you have to go back to the summoning spell again. So you have to leave everything set up. You can't disturb anything. So that way it's creating the anchor to get the spirit to go through, right? Like don't take your altar down. And then you summon it up after a week to see what it's doing, to check in if your spell hasn't manifested, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you do these things. And then when you're dismissing it, when you summon it up and dismiss it for the final time, right? You've already got the questions that you wanted. If it's just a once-off with one particular spirit, then you can dismiss it right away and you don't have to worry about the summoning it up again and then dismissing it, right? After you've given it a task, then you dismiss it. If it's doing it right in front of you. So if it talks through the EVP, if it talks through your camera, if it shows up in spirit body form and you're able to actually record the thing, then that would be how. And then when you're creating the dismissal, it's you want it to go in peace. You know, it should not be encouraged to stay within the area, but you should not be compelling it to do harm, right? You open the gate so that it may return back to where it came from, or it may traverse to a new heaven. So this is where you would need to know which heaven you want to send it off to. So if you're summoning it up from the earth or the hell of Saturn, you would need to know the name of the heaven of Saturn, so that by the gates of Saturn, let the heaven of Saturn be open so that the spirit can transmigrate, right? And the Temple of Miriam got a great article on the concept of the Dybbuk, which is...
Yeah, I watched that. I'm sub to the Temple of Miriam on YouTube.
That stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's really neat to see stuff like that, because it's the Judaic way of dealing with what I've been doing in exorcism for years, where I'll summon up a spirit from the earth or bound to its bones and then work it into a conjuration. So if you work for me, then you get to go to heaven, and you get to go to rejoin the cycle of transmigration. And it's the whole purification through the ritual. And so there's herbs and there's spells that I use within the ritual before I do the dismissal, where it's actually purifying the spirit. So it's taking all of the thing that the spirit was, and then you do a purification ritual before you do the dismissal. So that way you purify it, you keep your bargain, you keep your promise, you do all of these things, and you can then send it off.
Right.
So you elevate, you clean it, you baptize it, you do those sorts of things with it. And so therefore it's able to move into a new direction. So that, I know it's a really long and lengthy way to go through every single thing for the summons, but there's a bunch of textual resources. There's a bunch of concepts that you can incorporate into what it is you want to build out for your ceremony.
Right.
You know, and again, this is why it's not for everybody. This is why it's not for people that are just idle dabblers with like making a candle spell and that'll be that, right?
Right.
You know, it's, if you wanted to, you could make a summoning candle. You could mix the spirit anchoring powder into a candle, and then whenever you light it, the spirits get anchored to the candle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to simplify it, you can do it that way. But again, even if you're simplifying it, you still have to go through the invocation of power to call on that aspect of your divinity. You have to call on that spirit in some specific kind of way, that you have the authority by the power inside of you to do that. And if you don't have it, right? If you don't have the power invested in me, right? Like when judges and stuff are, or priests are doing holy wedding ceremonies, or they're doing funerals, it's like, by the power invested in me by God and the state of California or Pennsylvania or Georgia or whatever, that's a literal invocation of power to assume the role of that thing, anchoring in the authority of the divine and the ruling authority of the land. If you don't have something like that, you don't have it. You got to get it before you can use it. So this is where stuff like this becomes gatekeeping in a certain kind of way, but it's literal power that we're talking about. There are literal things that the individual magus has to undergo before they have the right to do this sort of thing.
Right. I get you.
And so like with you, you've gone through those. You understand that. For the people that are coming into this, they have to understand that if they want to do this kind of work and they want to get the results for this kind of work, they have to have a very specific dedication.
You have to put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not like what Hollywood makes it, where any like child witch can just start summoning up demons and, you know.
No.
Like even when you were a kid, go through the rite of summoning up Cerberus. Like you had to go through preparations for that, right?
Oh yeah, it took me a couple hours to draw it out on the road, draw the symbols out on the road. And I had to get the candles, steal the candles.
Did you steal it from a church?
I had to get a mirror. A couple other things I had to steal, but yeah, I got everything.
Now my question for you, did you steal it from a church?
Maybe a couple pieces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so there's a really interesting discussion in The Hidden Way Across the Threshold from 1890, where it talks about having to do black magic rites, where it's you commit crimes in order to fulfill the function of black magic, right? Because you're going against society. You can't exactly walk up into a church and say, can I have a couple candles for a ceremony? Depends on the church, but
or the candle bases.
Exactly. But if you use things like the Book of Common Prayer, you can bless the candle bases yourself because you've got the holy orders to do so, right? And so this, again, it goes into the levels of the temple, is like, that's level 3 shit, because you're channeling God and you're the one that's consecrating the candles, the candle holders, the wax that you make it out of. Like with Andrew's candle making video in the Brotherhood the other day, it's absolutely outstanding. He goes into the temperatures that you need.
Oh, I know.
Letting it cure. Like that
I was watching him.
Amazing video. And it's that level of every single thing. Like if I had a blacksmith on hand, like Hayden or somebody else who was able to do the castings of the candle holders for me, right, with metals that I send him, then that's an entirely different ball of wax than stealing it from a church, right? You
I
get
want to get a candle like you see in the old vampire movies. It's kind of like the menorah, but it's like creepy kind of arranged.
oh
And
yeah.
instead of just having the spikes where you set the candle on, I want actual skull heads. That way you can put the candle on and it lights the whole skull.
Oh, that would be
Cast
cool.
iron, maybe, like, you know what I mean? You just drop it in.
There's a great forge that I use that's comes out of England. They do all sorts of witch making ingredients and implements. You could probably get request custom.
Okay. I think that would be a really cool, like, candle stand.
That would be epic. Things
Right.
for the witch school, for the ritual room. Like, I might have to borrow that idea, Mike.
That way, when you have it at night and it lights up, you're lighting skulls on the, like
Yeah,
skulls all over. You see what I'm saying? Like, if not that,
right.
eyeball.
Have you seen those the fire pit skulls that are made out of like the carved lava?
Yes, I see a picture on Facebook. I'd love to have that fireplace.
Right. Like that in a fireplace would be fucking epic. And especially if you put the herbs of summoning and then you give it the skull and then it can speak through the fire. Holy shit. That brings back other conversations on things like the brazen head, where it's a bronze head which you stuff full of ingredients and then you light it on fire and the spirit speaks through the head, right? And so you're basically creating the Christianized version of what Odin did when he severed one of the heads of the giant Mimir to create wisdom, to have like a thing that could talk and teach wisdom, right? Because the head still stays alive even after the body is separated. The body stays alive, the head stays alive, like it's all just like freaky shit. But carry around mummified heads, like stuff them with ingredients. Like I've got a shrunken head that's made out of goat skin with human hair. Like I packed that.
How long did Pythagoras and what's his name carry around Hercules, or not Hercules, Medusa's head? Like a couple of
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like
that thing was pretty ripe. It had to have been.
Right, but it still had the power to turn people to stone. Like,
right
here. Ooh,
got something for you. Look.
Right. So, that would be like a full rite of summoning and evocation from start to finish. Probably would take you about 3 hours to set up, probably about 20 minutes to cast. And then you've got your period of divination. And then so you have to select your divination tools. Is it going to be a pendulum? Is it going to be a divination rods? Is it going to be a medium? Like, would you set your wife in there and let her channel the spirits like you would fucking the Oracle of Delphi? Like they sit over the incense smoke and they become the embodiment of that thing, right? And then you got to purify her afterwards. And, it gets into a whole thing. So you have to plan all of that out in advance when you're creating these complicated rituals, especially when there's the element of secondary consciousness. So not just the energies that are flowing through your body that are going to change your body chemistry and all of those things, but it's the behavior that happens afterwards and during that you have to also account for. So you have to be aware of.
I like mirrors, so I would probably put a mirror in there. That way they can show up either in the mirror or reflective off the mirror. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that would be epic.
Mirrors
Again, this goes into I was
also
discussing rings of power with Daniel last night. You can do the same thing with a mirror. If you get the permission from the grave owner to collect a large amount of graveyard dirt, right? For a period of time, you keep that for like a lunar cycle, right? You keep that mirror buried in the grave dirt. So that way it's got an attunement to the grave, and you pray over it every day. You light your candles, you do your offerings on the grave dirt with the mirror buried inside. So there it connects to that. So when it's time to interact with the spirit, you unbury the mirror and then you put it on your altar, and then it can speak through that intermediary. But that's old school. That's like 13th century necromancy right there.
Right.
Is your literal attunement to the dead in the other world. It's not just buy a mirror from Amazon and go to town with it. It's you have to condition it, you have to oil it, you have to produce it in some kind of way.
Right.
It's like I've got concave clock faces that are 13 inches across. These fuckers are massive. I use those for making mirrors, right? Like I'll mix graveyard dirt into the black enamel that I put on the back of it, along with all the herbs of summoning and things like that. That'll coat it in leather at a couple of different times of day, with either the hours of the moon or the hours of Saturn or whatever it is that I'm going to be summoning up through that mirror, right? If I was going to do celestial energies, I would coat it in gold. If I was going to do the dead, it would be the graveyard dirt, right? And so you can get those from a clock repair shop.
Okay.
So if you want to get the convex glass to be able to do those kind of scrying mirrors, repair shops, they sell those, and they're not that expensive. It was like $18 for these big ones.
Okay.
It was like I bought them in bulk, so they all came stacked in a giant box. So you can set up multiple mirrors if you get a couple of them, but you have to condition each one of them. Like you could do one for the heavens, you could do one for the hell, one for the earth, and then you create the arrangement for holding all of them. They're fragile as fuck though. But you can put the water in there, especially if you collect rainwater that's run off from a cemetery. And you can use that to mix the cemetery dirt and paint symbols and stuff onto the mirror itself.
Okay.
So if you're using a mirror, mix it with rainwater that's come from a cemetery, blend the cemetery dirt into the mud, make a paint with it, mix it with the herbs of summoning, and then you can, into the mirror itself, actually put that energy, actually put that as your focus point.
Right.
So that it has some place to come through or go into.
Gotcha.
So if you don't have a specific setup for where is the energy going, where is it going to be when it's there, and where is it going to leave from, you don't have a path of flow for the spirit to manifest. And that's why in like Enochian magic and stuff like that, John Dee's got the crystal ball, but it's coated in, half of it is encased in gold, so that way the spirits can't fall out the bottom of it, because otherwise it's just like a black hole. Like
that's why the Egyptians were big on electricity, because if you know how electricity works, it's just the same way when creating your spells and such. It's the same analogy.
Exactly. And there's a buddy of mine, his name is Hugh. He lives up in Maine. He builds electromagnetic summoning boxes. He's actually got the electromagnets at each of the 4 points, and inside he uses the crystal ball that he summons them into, using the electromagnetism to be the anchor for these things. So they're spirit conjuring boxes that he makes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really is. And he's a really great craftsman too. So that's more stuff for the Academy project. That's more stuff for the store that I want to build, is, getting physical objects like this from people like Hugh that you can use, that you can teach your friends to use, that you can teach other people in the paranormal field to be able to use and manipulate these sorts of things, so that there is a flow line of like, all right, we're going to do this thing. And there's the electricity, there's the science, there's the methodology, there's the ingredients, everything is lined up accordingly. It's like, it's all about the system you're using. If you don't have the entire fluid line of energy moving from the start of your ritual to the end of your ritual, you're not going to get shit done. Right. And that's the unfortunate side effect, is like, if you don't carry the holy orders, if you don't have that power running through you, if you don't have the initiations, then you don't have the basic foundation that you need in order to be able to channel half the shit I'm talking about. Right. And so this again goes into the level 2 conversation or the level 3 conversation. Right. This is stuff that the level 1 people can learn about. They can build all of this stuff. Right. But until you get into that level 2 of either the rite of transformation to be able to connect with these energies specifically 1-to-1, or the level 3 where you, like us, have holy orders to do these kinds of interactions, right? It doesn't become viable for your everyday witch, right? Like if they want to summon the dead, they're going to have to figure out, well, they can't use evocations based upon holy orders and the summoning of the names of God, because they don't have the authority to do so. They have to create their own based on their experiences, based on their relationship with the dead, based on what they do with the dead in tandem, right? And so this is where it becomes complicated. This is where it becomes, not everybody has the right to do this. And that's the unfortunate thing, is like, there's the people that have the want to do that, but the people that have the want to do that can go through the process and actually learn it, or they won't.
Right.
You know, and that's what makes it sad. Like, it's like these little jars that I've got, right? Inside of here is a talisman that's specifically made for evoking whatever spirit you want.
Okay.
So this has everything, it's ready to go. All I have to do is open it up, use this as an altar cloth, put the talisman on top of it, and put the ingredients and stuff around it, and it's ready to go.
Okay, gotcha.
So like you can batch the fuck out of these things and just keep them stored for later use. You know, put the oil that's associated with the energy that you're summoning, right? Like I've got the oil of Metatron made from the name of Metatron with all the ingredients, so that if I was going to summon that energy and that intelligence, right? But it's also knowing that Metatron is Enosh, who was Irad, son of Cain.
Right.
Right. It's from Cain's lineage to Adam and Eve is the divine child. Irad's ascension up into heaven as the right hand of God goes through those different orders.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
Enoch explains a little bit of it.
Who?
Enoch, if you read the book of Enoch,
Yeah,
he goes into pretty good detail about it.
Well, Enoch was the name of Irad once he became the high priest. That is who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then when he died, or when he ascended to heaven or whatever.
Well, there's two Enochs. You know that, right?
Enoch, the son of Cain, and then there's Enoch, the
son of Yared.
Right. Oh shit. Okay.
Two Enochs, bub. I know. I did the whole genealogy.
Oh, such a pain in the ass. I was only focusing on the one. One that
there's two.
Yeah. Jesus. See, this is why I'm glad I talked to you.
Methuselah and
right. Oh, so much genealogy.
I love Methuselah. He's a badass.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's like, this is why you need to know your history, and I don't get into it like that. Like that was a request somebody may ask me to do, is to make this oil for them. So it's like, I don't work with these energies. I don't like, I can make you the oil. I'll do it appropriately. And you know,
see, this was my whole last 10 years of journey. Like I said, I got into the Christianity and then got into the Judaism and then went straight to the beginning, the genealogy. You guys can watch my channel, From Religion to Agnostic. It tells you pretty much how I went from there to here I am now, practicing the writings of King Solomon.
Exactly.
You know, I didn't leave that particular faith per se, but I realized that there's much more outside of that coincides with a lot of what King Solomon says. There was earlier people, you got to understand that, way before King Solomon, like Methuselah, like Yared, like, Enoch. And those people eventually taught the Egyptians, which stemmed from the Hebrew Israelites, the workings of metallurgy and beautyology and all kinds of other stuff.
Right. I mean, and this is why it's such a fantastic discipline, but this is why it takes fucking years to practice. And this is why having a school where people like yourself are willing to talk about this sort of thing. We come together, we discuss you might not know the rituals from front to back, but you know the lineage, you know the history, you carry the rights to do that. It's like, in your hands, the spell that I gave you is perfect.
Right.
But a spell that I would have to give somebody else who isn't you in order to be able to summon the spirits would look different. It would be functionally different.
Right.
Because it wouldn't work for them the same way. And this is again why having practical applications of spellcraft, having stuff that's specific to the path that you represent and you walk, having these are your signature rituals. These are your signature rites, where all you need is just the same ritual that you can repeat over and over and over again, right? This is where priests get paid to do weddings, the same wedding ceremony, 13 grand in the church.
I feel for the priests, man. They're in the freaking Catholic Church. They got to keep doing exorcism after exorcism. That's got to be tiring. That's a lot of energy, man. Like, seriously.
See, and I love doing exorcisms after one after another. Like, that's my jam. Like, if I could just get paid to do that, I'd be down for that. Like,
contact the Catholic Church.
But the problem is I'd have to become Catholic.
But you're already 501c3, so you're halfway there.
I know. I don't want to be a Catholic. But if I was going to do a Catholic, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, I don't have a problem with summoning up Jesus or the idea of the Virgin Mary or any of the saints or any of that stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with what they implement it with and how they implement it, and with the history of their implementation methods of it. I believe it's all fucked up and wrong. So
Well, when you do the genealogy and you come to understand who this Jesus or Yeshua really was, and his name is Yeshua in Hebrew.
right,
When you understand who he really was, he was a nomad. He was a loner, like a druid. He stayed in a strict priesthood, and that's why he was able to go around the synagogues and piss off the Jewish people, because he lived in a society that was outside of the Jewish people. Like, he was a druid, a nomad. Like, he practiced how do you think he healed people and made demons run away from people? He was like us. He was a high priestess in this, community, and had the rights to do that. Like,
right,
it's not that he was some special son of God. We're all the sons and daughters of God. It's just he knew the magical practices. He knew that, if you said this, use this oil, put your lands on this guy, you could run demons out of people. Like,
yeah,
he wasn't nothing special. It was just in his time, he was brighter than most of the peasants and commoners and studied people of that time. He
right.
was more knowledgeable. He used the Hermeticism. He knew the law. He knew everything to the T, straight down to the Aramaic, to the Hebrew language, how incantations work. He was able to go make a blind man see, because he had that ability.
Right.
Not because he was something special from the Son of God, born from a virgin, but because he knew. He knew magic. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing David Copperfield practices. Same thing David Blaine practices. Same thing a lot of your witches and warlocks over in England and your Scottish rites and them. The same thing they practice. It's nothing different. It's just a new day and age.
It's just the technique is what it comes down to. It's the knowledge behind the technique.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is using Egyptian magic, using the things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about the rites of the high priest, is you do become the god. You do become the child of that god, literally. And that's part of your invocation. That's part of the amount of power that you have to channel as that conduit. So yes, while we are all children of gods and all of that lineage, whatever, in ritual capacity, that does not exist. Like, you can't do that unless you go through that.
Right. And see, that's the thing. Because we are divine beings, we're not just a human in a flesh suit. Like, because we are divine beings, and the higher ups know this. This is why it's occult knowledge. It's why it's hidden knowledge. Because they know if your pineal gland is open, this is why they put fluoride in your water and fluoride in your toothpaste, people. This is why they feed you fluoride in an abundant amount, okay? Because they know that if your pineal gland is flowing with the milk and the honey, and it's open, and it's reaching contact with the gods and the goddesses, you're a force to be reckoned, especially if you know how to use said magic to contact these gods and goddesses. Like,
Exactly.
It's just, these are things that are hidden from everybody, that they're considered evil. They've been brought up in many generation after centuries of, this is everybody, why were we afraid of the witches but not the ones who burnt them? Think about that.
Right. And again, this goes back to, I'm more afraid of the guy who's preaching to burn the witches and to burn the books and to do all of these things, because he's basically trying to bring back the fear and the rhetoric and to keep people enslaved. And if you don't fall into line with his version of what community is in a very narrow-minded way, then he doesn't value the sanctity of life. And he's preaching an inverse version of the Bible. He's preaching an inverse version of everything he says he's
preaching his version.
Right, which isn't
no better than Benny Hill or whatever that other old guy is that looks like he's the son of evil.
Trump? No.
No. I can't think of his name. He's an old guy. He's got a weird name. He looks like the devil.
Yeah.
All wrinkled up skin, like he's been on. You can tell he's been walking Earth way too long. They should have been like, he's taking that special stuff to keep him alive. What the hell's his name? What's that guy's name I was picking on not too long ago?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
The old preacher, the old guy.
Oh, are you talking about the guy with the
Got
700
like
club?
17 jets. Huh?
The guy with the 700 club.
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Not Olstein.
no, not Olstein. This guy's older. He's like almost 100 years old.
Oh shit. Okay.
Wrinkled up prune. Spits
Yeah.
out hate like the rest of them.
Which is unnecessary because none of where does hate and fear fit into any of the ritual magic that we just discussed?
He's the one that said, "COVID, I blow you away."
Copeland.
Copeland. Yeah. Fucking nut.
Jesus. Jesus. Save me from your people. Yeshua, save me from your people. But
Yeshua, that's your people. Please pass me by.
yeah, right. Like I don't want none of that.
No.
Just keep it rolling, buddy. Like keep it rolling. Like
I'm good. I'll catch the next train.
right. So, but again, it comes to the people that are attached to religion in the public orders that have no idea what actually the thing is that the priests are supposed to be saying, because the priests don't go through the full education program. They don't look into the fullness of what is. They cherry pick their religion. They don't study the religion as it is, with the magic, with the ceremonies, with the spirits, with the demons, with the dead, all of those things. They cherry pick it.
That's what I try to explain to people, you know, when they come to me and they're like, "Oh, you don't know the Bible." And it's like, you know what? I just did 10 years in this Bible. You don't read the Bible, because if you read the Bible, then you would understand that there was a trade route back then. And in that trade route back then, there was a special thing called a priest's anointment. Do you know what was in that priest's anointment? It was frankincense, myrrh, cannabosum, meaning cannabis. You don't read your own Bible because you think it's the fucking devil's lettuce. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you read your Bible, you would understand that this specific herb is holy. It was holy to the Hebrew Israelites. It was holy to the first generation of patriarchs. It was holy. It is holy. It's from the divine holy. Like, but you're against it. So tell me how you read your Bible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
cherry picking.
These laws that you practice, half of them were in effect 1,000 years before the Bible came out by King Hammurabi, who many think was Moses. So, you know what I mean? Like, Moses didn't live that long, so you can't tell me 1,000 years prior to that. Well, maybe, I don't know. They lived like
Moses was like 980 when he died, wasn't he?
Maybe, yeah, but you can't tell me he wrote them things when he was like 18 years old, and then 1,000 years later he comes to write the Bible. Like, that's kind of retarded.
No,
I'm not
no.
buying it. You know
and that's the thing is, like, even the Dark Ages manuscripts, like the 6th and 7th book of Moses, right? As those have dubious origins, but they've stayed in practice for hundreds of years, and they got to work to some degree, or else it wouldn't, right?
Well, they do. And that's why when you understand how the Bible was created, it's, you know, a bunch of like priestly and Psalms and Deuteronomist writings. You know, it was put together to make the Old Testament, and then come along this redaction and like, yeah, it's called the documentary hypothesis. People, look it up. It's not from some holy God written by all these people. Like, I'm sorry, that's a fairy tale.
Right.
I gotta burst your bubble.
You know, and
if God wanted me to know something, he would have told me himself.
Yeah,
he has.
And that's the thing, is that's the biggest ball of bullshit, is that God is not interacting with the world today.
I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna give you a little experience that God, the All Father, whatever you want to call him, works in a miraculous way. All right, I was driving truck, and I had a really like quick load. I could have got it done. I had to go home, but this was the last load, so I was in a hurry, and I had to go from Pennsylvania into New Jersey to pick the load up. It was like a load of beer. I took it to Maine, and I was off for the rest of the day and whatever. But I'm in this 80,000 pound rig truck, okay, big truck, 18-wheeler, and I'm in the fast lane. It's like 3:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, somewhere around there, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden my vision goes bam. I'm sitting in the front seat of this truck with 80,000 pounds. I don't remember who's to the right of me, who's in front of me, who's behind me. I know there's a big ass wall to the left of me. And I'm sitting there, I'm not freaking out. I'm just like, okay, what do I do? I get this warm feeling, like somebody poured warm water over me, but there was no warm water. It was just this uncontrollable warm love. And I get, do you trust me? You have other senses, try to use them. And right away, I guess, I don't know if it was instinct or what, but I'm like, you're right, I do. I have feeling, I have hearing, smelling, and tasting. I can use the hearing to my advantage. If I go to the right by the feeling, I can hit the note, the little markers on the road. After I put my turn signal on and I turn, well, whoever's on the side of me will, let me over. Thank God there wasn't nobody this whole stretch. But I turned on the turn signal and I slightly just made the turn, and I heard this. So I knew my right wheels were passing over, and I'm slowly merging into the slow lane. Heard it on the driver's side. And I'm like, okay, now I'm in the slow lane, not in the fast lane no more. Take a deep breath, turn my turn signal on, do the same thing. All right, I know I'm on the side of the road. Dude, I stopped this truck after all this. I'm not panicking, but I should have been. The moment I fucking jumped out this truck, my vision came back. Panic set in. I had a fucking panic attack. I called my dispatcher. I'm like, look, I don't care if I got to be on the road the rest of the week. You got to give me a day, man, because I am not moving this truck. I'm sleeping right now. And like, dude, I did. I mean, I didn't fucking slept. Like, no, like that doesn't happen. There was a force there with me. No, that's not possible. It's just not possible. Like, a number of things could have happened. I could have hit the brick wall. I could have hit a bridge. I could have hit another car. Like, that experience taught me a lot about forces that we are not able to see.
Right.
Between that and my near-death experience, yeah, I'm not convinced of the whole heaven and hell shit. I'm not.
No.
I am kind of more convinced about the reincarnation kind of thing, but as in the Egyptian mythology, you know what I mean? Like, that makes kind of a lot more sense now. But with some of the experiences that I've had, no, you're not convinced.
Yeah, I mean, again, like that's absolutely beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing that, because it's moments like that when you're interacting with the divine. It's like the divine is not in a book from 2,000 years ago. The divine is active every day in everybody's life. It's just, how does it interact? It's the way that it interacts, the way that it comes across. And if you can recognize it, then you can give it honor. Then you can do it justice. Then you can walk it out.
That's the thing. People don't recognize it today because they're so used to ignoring it or chalking up to that was evil. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? People don't recognize it because of the way they've been programmed and demoralized, and don't shut up, not pay attention, and obey what's in your little doctrine book there.
And this is why it's important that there's folks like us that are examining both church doctrine, ritual magic, witchcraft, paganism, and walking it out. It's like, I'm not saying that these old books, or like this book from the 1700, it's based on, the Episcopal doctrines, are accurate. I'm saying that if you're going to do things according to those evocations, according to those bunches of ritual magic, then you've got to understand, how do these things relate to you, right? Like, how do they fit in the flow line of, all right, you're a divine being. Are you going to use the divinity of other things, or are you going to use your own divinity? And if you're going to find your own divinity, then what are you going to do to get it? That's your level 2 into level 3 conversation. It's like, all right, you're in a level 2, right? You've got the power, you've got the understanding of it. Well, now what the fuck are you going to do with it?
Right.
That's the next step. And so it's like, what is it that you think that we could cover tomorrow that would nail home the conversation of going through and really getting very, very deep into that level 3 conversation? What do you propose would be that level 3 conversation?
Wouldn't it be the completing of the project?
What would that project look like? What would the completion of that project be? right? Like today we went over the structure of the project. We went over the why of the project, right?
Completion would be catching evidence on camera.
Right. And so your homework would be is going to be a few weeks late, it seems.
Just a tad bit.
Just a tad bit late, but at least you know, right? And at least you're going through it. So even if you can't walk out the full ritual, you can go through parts of it. You could put the symbol of Saturn on your hand and open the gates of Saturn tonight. You can sit there and channel these energies through you, and you can get to know these energies. And then tomorrow we can talk about them. We can talk about what the difference was when you opened the gates internally versus externally. Like that would be what I would say you do is you take about an hour today, right? You draw up using pen and paper, a grid, use it as an external focus, put a crystal on it, do an external conjuration, like channel the energy down and through your body externally, right? But then draw a symbol on your skin, right?
Couldn't I draw the symbol on a piece of cardboard and then put this on top of it and use it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You absolutely
candles.
could.
Some candles.
Mhm. You could do a full-on summoning spell tonight.
Have the camera running, see if we can catch a little something.
Exactly. And you don't have to go through and do everything by the graveside, right? If you've got a little bit of graveyard dirt, put a little bit of that on the thing. Like give it a place to come from, give it a place to go into, give it some light and some offering. And you can absolutely do a summoning spell tonight. That's what I would say your homework would be. Like that, walk it out, actually do something. And we covered all sorts of different ways that you can create a summoning spell, from the big elaborate ritual to the nice, tiny, simple, like, we're going to do this thing. Right? So anyway, Mike, I appreciate you sticking with me today. I will see you tomorrow for the conclusion, and I look forward to your submission of your homework.
All righty.
Awesome, my brother. You be safe, all right?
You too, man.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's see.